Hi everyone, Robert Sane here again on another rainy Friday morning. By the time you see this video, hopefully the rain will have cleared and it'll be a beautiful weekend this last weekend in September of 2020. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the lectionary readings for this coming Sunday, the 17th Sunday after Pentecost. The text comes from a portion of Matthew's Gospel, chapter 21. The religious authorities are upset with him. They've seen him do many things that really turned them off. Healing on the Sabbath, associating with sinners and tax collectors. And now, upon entering Jerusalem, Jesus has overturned the money changers' tables. He's cursed a fig tree and caused it to be withered, and they're literally beside themselves because Jesus is popular, and they want to get rid of him. They want to do away with him, but they're also fearful of inciting a riot and bringing the Roman authorities down upon them. When they confront him, Jesus does what he oftentimes does in the Gospels. He tells a parable. This is a parable that ironically begins, there was a man who had two sons. It reminds me a little bit of the parable of the prodigal son that starts exactly the same way. And you have two brothers who make two very different choices, kind of almost the same way that happens with the parable of the prodigal son. You've got one brother who says that he'll go work in the vineyard, and he doesn't. Then you have another son who seems to indicate that he's not going to do anything, but in the end, he does. By telling this parable, Jesus allows the religious authorities to make their own decision about how they see themselves, and they're none too happy about it, but they can't really do anything about it because if they do, Jesus will incite a riot against the Roman authorities. So they're really stuck. And of course, what Jesus is saying, to them, what Jesus is indicating is, yes, they are the ones who've been entrusted with the faith. They are the gatekeepers of the temple and of the scriptures, yet it seems that they care very little about people. They're much more concerned about their own power and their own authority. By the way, that word authority is mentioned 4 different times in the Gospels. Now, normally when we think about authority, especially in the ancient world, we think about someone who was a king or perhaps an emperor, and that they used their power and authority to secure their kingdom and to put down any attempt of any rival. Instead, Jesus' use of power and authority is exactly the opposite. He empties himself of power and authority, and he becomes obedient even unto death on a cross. The word authority shows up 4 different times in today's gospel, and it appears numerous times in the Gospel of Matthew. In one instance, the text says that Jesus taught with authority, not like the authority of the scribes or the Pharisees. Jesus summoned his 12 disciples together and gave them the authority to cast out demons. And in the final chapter of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus speaks to the disciples just before his ascension, and he says, all authority in heaven and earth has been given unto me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And remember, I'm with you always until the close of the age. This is the authority that's been given to the church as well. That authority is not to be used to lord it over anyone or to try to control other people or things, or to make your own understanding or vision of what the church should be or shouldn't be or should do or shouldn't do. Those are things that we entrust to leaders who've been elected and who serve without worrying about, without concern about how people will perceive them in the congregation. Sometimes leadership requires people to make unpopular decisions, but the decisions that are needed for the community, or in this case, for the congregation. St. Paul spoke in Philippians today. He talked about being in the mind of Christ. And I think that's what we're talking about here for you and me, that in the mind of Christ, we don't worry about who wins or who's in charge. Instead, our concern is to serve others. This whole notion of the authority of Christ, it is grounded in love. Jesus' authority, God's authority, is grounded in his love for us. And likewise, that's the case for the people we serve as well. This is another one of those parables that Jesus tells that gets our attention by stepping all over our toes. My toes are hurting a little bit today. How about yours? And I hope to see you up on the mountain at church on Sunday at 11 a.m. in the parking lot. Thanks for watching the video. Tell your friends and relatives and neighbors about it. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Bye.